Good day, everyone. My name is John Dludlu, your moderator today and the CEO of the Small Business Institute. A few hygiene issues. Once introduced, our speakers will give their addresses and then take questions from the audience. For the sake of good order, we encourage the questions to be posted on the chat box. I'll read them. We really want you to be a participant in this interactive session. Last year, we turned 8 years as an organization, and over the last few years, since our transformation from AHI to the Small Business Institute, we've been driving a series of dialogues on a range of topics, but principally how we can achieve the aspiration of the NDP, which is that by 2030, 90% of all the 11 million jobs should be contributed to by the small business segment of South Africa. As you know, through our 2017 research study, the formally registered SMEs, which make up 98% of all registered companies, only contribute some 28% of formal employment. This makes us an outlier economy in the world, as in most successful economies, this segment tends to contribute in the order of 60 to 70% of all jobs. It's important that I point out that these numbers I have just quoted exclude those employed by freelancers, gig and informal sector businesses. We have to take our heads off to those business owners, sometimes colloquially known as the unseen sector, for contributing to alleviating the unemployment situation in our country. The figures I've referenced were prior to the recent challenges our small businesses have had to overcome, including red tape, recessionary conditions, and low economic growth, COVID-19 floods in KZN and Eastern Cape, civil unrest in parts of KZN and Gauteng, and in the past year, crippling power outages amid rising cost of living. As we said in our webinar last year, and it bears repeating here, our small businesses are generally resilient, but they too can only take and survive so much strain. Like households and families, they too need relief and sustained support. In this context, we really have to commend the financial first responders and government for having played their part in supporting our small businesses during a difficult era. We welcome yesterday's announcement from the Minister of Finance of a repurposed bounce back scheme to assist with an unreliable power grid. More sustainable support is required to get us back to pre-pandemic hope levels. Amongst the most effective tools of supporting economic recovery and reconstruction is government's multi-billion rand program to rehabilitate, expand, and build new economic and social infrastructure to stimulate growth. Our first speaker is a man who has been tasked with this enormous task. He really needs no introduction. He is no stranger to public service. His most recent roles include serving as executive mayor of Tshwane, our capital, and now heads up Infrastructure South Africa, the agency tasked by government with rolling out this ambitious infrastructure program. He holds a string of academic qualifications, including an MBA and a PhD. We are hugely indebted to him for having agreed to make time to speak to us about his job and highlight opportunities for the private sector, especially small businesses in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me enormous pleasure to welcome Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa to give us a keynote address, which will be followed by a generous indulgence of a short Q&A session. Dr. Ramokgopa, welcome. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, CEO and Mr. Dludlu, and good morning to everyone on the call, and thank you very much for extending the invitation for me to come and share with you the program that we're working on, and of course expand on the conversations around the inclusion of small business in the value chain of the delivery of infrastructure in our country. And like I said, just to commend you on the excellent work that you are doing to surface and foreground the importance of small business, but also cover opportunities for them to contribute meaningfully in the economy of the country. And as you have stated, I think our preeminent planning framework, the National Development Plan, does envisage a very prominent and preeminent role for small business in the South African economy. I'm going to, by aid of a presentation, just take you through the work that we are doing, and really the intention there is to make it possible for you to have a greater appreciation of that which we are doing in the office, and of course, when we have an opportunity to dialogue, I'm sure I can expand more on some of the issues that I'm raising here. I thought that the starting point should be just an appreciation of the South African economy, where we are, and also the contribution of infrastructure in achieving the 2030 aspirational targets as enunciated in the NDP. So what this slide does really is to make an acknowledgement that investments in the South African economy is indispensable to both growth and employment creation. If you go to the NDP, it does make the point that the upstream of achieving those aspirational targets, it's important that we also focus on improving what we call gross fixed capital formation. So in short, really, it's about the levels of investments in the South African economy, and it does suggest that those levels of investment in the South African economy should be about 30% of GDP. As I speak to you now, the gross fixed capital formation expressed as a percentage of GDP is sitting at about 13.7%. So I'm sure you can already see that we are far off the mark. And this really has little to do with the devastation of the pandemic, COVID-19, but it's a trend line that we've been experiencing over a sustained period of time. I think the only time that we peaked, or when we reached the peak of this investments in the South African economy, was during the period of what I refer to as the golden years of South African economy, and I think the period 2008 to 2010. Of course, globally there was a financial crisis, a global financial crisis, but the South African economy was doing exceptionally well. So you can see there that both growth and employment, they track investments. There's a direct correlation. As investment goes up, it's then followed by growth and also employment. So this really does confirm the need for us to be able to focus the greater levels of attention in ensuring that we create an environment for increased investments in the South African economy. And the point also that has to be made, which is not necessarily illustrated in the graph before you, is that 30%, 2/3 of it has to come from the private sector. So essentially the point made there is that the state will play a crowding in effect, will galvanize private sector participation. So it's important that you create conditions for private sector to participate. And if with the 13.7% of GDP, that is currently the situation, 72% coming from the private sector. So you can see that the private sector is important, if you like, in the achievements of this target going forward. And then this slide really, what it does is to show you the geographic dispersion of these investments over a period of time. So we have done a longitudinal study in the office, and we tracked and computed, if you like, the investments that have been made in the country since 1994, for obvious reasons. 1994 is a period that marks the victory of the democratic project over a system that is universally categorized as a crime against humanity, and essentially trying to understand what has been the spatial implications of the policy choices that have been made by a democratic state. So what this illustrates, of course, you might not have an appreciation of the legend. So where you see a deep green there, it tells about, talks to the concentration of investments in that space. So you can see that the metro province of Gauteng has a lion's share of those investments. You might not see it properly there. So it's about 34%. When you go to KZN, it's the metro province of eThekwini, it's the metro municipality of eThekwini. When you go to the Western Cape, is the metro municipality, that is Cape Town. So you can see that the centers of economic growth in the country is largely your major metropolitan areas. And even beginning to, in many parts of the world, they are surpassing nation sovereign states in terms of their contributions to their local economies. And that trend line is also mirrored here in the country. You can see the metro spaces are contributing disproportionately to growth in the country. And then you can see that there's some green in the northwest. There really is investments in the mining area of Rustenburg. You go to Limpopo, the platinum belt there in Mogalakwena. So really the investments there are driven largely by mining. And where you see red and orange, it means that those are areas of investment famine. So it's the Northern Cape, is the Eastern Cape, is the Free State, the large parts of KZN is in Mpumalanga. What is the point I'm making? The point I'm making is that you're likely going to find that even small businesses in those spaces that are not experiencing investments are seeing less and less opportunities. So it's important that the state drives the investments into those spaces so that there's an equitable distribution of the democratic dividend. So the point I'm making is that the small business opportunities is a function also of the spatial location. And you can see that there's greater prospects of accessing opportunities if you are in the major metropolitan centers. So it's important that we ensure that we spread the cake in geographic terms. I thought that it would be useful for me just to situate you on what constitutes our work in Infrastructure South Africa. I'm making this point so that there's an appreciation on the platform here that we don't necessarily get involved in the execution of projects and therefore a very limited, if you like, influence on how procurement happens. But we're involved upstream of this project. So we involved now in a great deal in project preparation, making sure that the projects are investable. We're able to direct these projects to get the financing through the debt capital markets. We also are in charge of the 100 billion rand infrastructure fund, which is essentially a blended financing mechanism incubated at the DBSA, so that the state takes the first loss, we de-risk the project, and we allow make it possible for private sector to invest. And we also curating projects that needs to be funded through the fiscus. And then once these projects have attracted the financing and funding, it is then the project sponsors that they take these projects to construction. So let's take, for an example, the big pipeline of projects that we have is in the road infrastructure space. So we'll help Sanral package this project, go to the debt capital markets, raise the money, attract the financing. And once that financing is done, then it's a Sanral that must run a procurement process. And the same, if you like, modus operandi cuts across all the spaces we get to be involved in. But fortunately, Cabinet has taken a decision to say that Infrastructure South Africa must be invested in the entire project life cycle. So we'll cease just to address the issues of project preparation, packaging, financing, but we'll also be involved in first the conceptualization of those projects and also their delivery. Delivery meaning bid specification, being part of the procurement and also making determinations around issues like localization, participation of designated groups, and for purposes of this webinar, the degree to which a small business must participate, so that those ambitious targets as enunciated in the NDP and reaffirmed here by Mr. Lulu gets to be realized, because really the intervention must be deliberate, must be intentional. And I mean, if you had to ask me, I don't think that there's that degree of appetite to ensure that across all of general government, there's a deliberate, if you like, ambition to ensure that there's a meaningful participation of small business. So I thought that I must make that point. Of course, other areas that we're working on, I mean, as part of the work that we are doing, I did make the point is to galvanize private sector participation, because it's the private sector that has got a disproportionate amount of burden in ensuring that there's financing of this project, and this project gets to financial flows and they get to be delivered. But of course, the state plays the lead. And in doing so, we'll be building confidence in the ability of the state to conceive of projects and bring them to fruition. I did make the point that we also are addressing the issues of if there are policy obstacles, regulatory hurdles, those needs to be attended to, and of course, drawing from our engagement, interaction, and involvement in the infrastructure space, we've been able to birth the country's national infrastructure plan, and we also make recommendations on how best to review the policy environment. So there's a number of reforms that we are advocating for in the national infrastructure plan. And some of those include localization, which will lead to industrialization and greater participation of small to medium enterprises in the delivery of the infrastructure project pipeline. And then we've got a long-term ambition as the state. I mean, the idea of a capable developmental and democratic state. I think it's important that we are able to recreate, or if you like, rebuild the technical and financial engineering capacity that has been hemorrhaged over a period of time. So we see ourselves, if you like, as an aggregator of skills in the public sector, but more significantly over a period of time to make it possible for the state to stand on its feet in relation to its technical and financial engineering capacity. Of course, I'm using a narrow lens of infrastructure. And then let's get now to where are these projects. So I mean it's a number of projects. I'm sure I'll after this webinar will make it available, just a list of the projects. So what I've done here is, if you like, a high-level summary of these projects. A few points needs to be made here. The first one is that our focus has been on what we call foundational network infrastructure. So it's energy, transport, water, and digital infrastructure. And why is that the case? It's because it has been proven that this foundational network infrastructure has got the capability of improving the efficiency of the South African economy, the efficiency of the network, the movement of goods, the ability for people to access opportunities. It gives real opportunities for us to achieve, if you like, spatial justice. It makes it possible for us to achieve universal access. It makes it possible for spaces to industrialize. So as long as there's good quality road, the certainty in the delivery of energy and water, you're connected to the municipal grid and it's reliable. Of course, it's also affordable or it's cost reflective, and there's a communication infrastructure in place. Then there's a greater likelihood of industry investing in those spaces. And if you remember the slide that I showed you that shows the map of the sovereign map, you could see that the concentration of those investments in those metro spaces is also in large part a function of a functioning infrastructure in those spaces. And where you see investment famine, it also illustrates the fact that there are no good quality roads, the roads are not surfaced, and a lot of houses are not connected to the municipal grid. There's no existing capacity to connect industry to municipal grid. Communication infrastructure is significantly compromised, and that's why private sector is not moving in those spaces. So that's the first part. And of course, we also included issues around agriculture and agro-processing, given, if you like, the skills profile in the country, but also our location advantages. I mean, if you go to the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, the Free State, I think there's prime areas there are prime spots for primary agriculture. And we think that the contribution of agriculture in the South African economy has been significantly understated. And if you look at the trend line in relation to its contribution to GDP, it has been taking a dip. And that's why that undermines our ability to create the much needed jobs. So we put together, if you like, a pipeline of over 340 billion rands of projects. And now, as I speak to you, about the 132 billion rands of these projects are in construction, 134 are in procurement. Of course, we continue to increase the pipeline to be above 340 billion rands, and close to 4 billion rands of these projects are completed. And you can see is the energy, water, transport, digital infrastructure space. So what is the point, the message to be taken out of this slide? I mean, outside me just explaining, if you like, the profile of those projects, is that in terms of our pipeline, I mean, if you have see-through of our pipeline, you can see that there's significant dominance of this foundational network infrastructure. So the point I'm making is that small business must also position itself to have just an appreciation that, of course, the energy space is going to be very dominant, and I'll expand on that going forward. Water infrastructure is going to be very dominant, in part because significant communities are not connected to the grid, but also because the existing grid and infrastructure is collapsing. So you have to do an analysis of the value chain and an appreciation of what are the inputs that goes into delivering this kind of infrastructure. And therefore you begin to position yourself to seize those opportunities as and when they arise. But the point I'm making is that those opportunities are now and immediate. I mean, the 900 billion plus infrastructure program that the minister referred to over the MTF is principally in these areas. If you go back and listen to the Minister of Finance or read the speech, you will see that it's principally in the space of roads, in the space of water, energy, and digital infrastructure. So it's important that as and when you think of these opportunities, they must be aligned to what the state thinks. Of course, you can also see what is it that private sector is doing. And then just to zero in on the more contemporaneous question of energy. So the Minister of Finance yesterday introduced, if you like, incentives for rooftop solar solutions. So there's work that we're doing in the office in trying to make interventions on the demand side, if you like, of the energy ecosystem. So if you like, interventions behind the meter, because I had in front of the meter really talking about generation. So really it's a space that is dominated by the monopoly that is Eskom, and also there's new players that are coming on stream, the renewable energy developers in the country. But for a moment, let's focus behind the meter. So essentially at the level of consumption. So our view is that when you begin to have a conversation about what can be done in ameliorating communities and the economy from the devastation of load shedding, the conversation, of course, is tilted or pivoted more on the generation side. But we think that we are losing significant opportunities on demand side intervention. So what do we know about demand side intervention? So let's take the sprawling, if you like, assets of the state. So we know that if we were to retrofit many of government buildings, and I'm saying many because I don't necessarily think we'll do everything. So essentially key infrastructure. So your major centers, correctional centers, your high courts, all the big hospital, tertiary hospitals in particular. Of course, you prioritize where you want to start because, like I said, the government owns over 93,000, if you like, buildings across the length and breadth of the country. So you'll not be able to do all of that at the go. So we know that from the work that we have done, the condition assessment, when we have done the top 5 departments in the country, there's potential for us to save about 320 megawatts of energy. So this is solar PV, battery storage, and also inverters. And there's numbers there just to say what is the impact on the economy. So that's the one part. And then households, the instrument that the minister introduced yesterday as an incentive, if you like, a tax break. So he says, we know the following. We know that in the country, there's about anything between 5 to 6 million title deeds, and 1.5 million to 2 million of those title deeds are bonded. So essentially in the country, you have 6 million plus houses. I'm saying 6 million plus because a lot of the RDP houses, the title deeds have not been issued, but the houses are there. And we know from our own computation that the households consume up to 17%, 16.9% of the grid capacity. And at peak, during the morning and afternoon peak, this can go up to 35%. And really the idea of solar intervention is to lessen pressure on the grid, because your problems really is during the period of the peak. So that's what we know. And then the minister has introduced the incentives there. But there's also other things that we know, is that really you are not sitting with a financing problem, because if you go to the major banks, we sat with all of them, we are working on an instrument, a solution to accelerate the delivery of solar. And of course, the office will be at the forefront from the government side in leading that. Is that the banks, as I speak to you, I mean, on the basis of their clients, they can only meet about 18.2% of the demand. And of course, their clients are the people who are credit worthy, they meet the risk profile. But once there are these incentives that the state is introducing, it means that there's going to be a sharp uptake on solar rooftop solar solution. But we know that we are sitting with two problems, and this is I'm taking time to explain this just to say there are real opportunities that are before us as small businesses in the country. Two major problems, and these are structural problems. I did say that the banks can only meet 18.2%, and once the demand goes up, I think we're going to be able to meet less than 5% of that demand. What are those structural problems? The first one is that we are not manufacturing all this equipment, so we are importing the equipment. So it's a logistics problem. So you need to bring this equipment into the country. But in that problem, there's an opportunity. What is the opportunity is the requirement for localization. And as you localize, then you industrialize. Of course, in the short term, the interim measure is to ensure that you make the logistics network of importing from outside a bit more efficient, so that, because we're sitting with an urgent crisis of energy, we want to resolve it quickly. But you can say in the next 8 to 12 months, the state then places a requirement that that equipment must be locally manufactured. So the point I'm making is that then there's opportunities around manufacturing. But then on the back of that, you need to design a financial instrument that will make it possible for small players to go into that space, because the barriers of entries are huge there. Outside technology, warehousing, there's also a need to significant financing to be able to deliver on the requirement for localization. And the next big opportunity, and this I think is almost immediate, is that you will need accredited installers. So you will need the small business organize itself, recruit train and recruit, if you like, accredited installers so that we are able to meet the demand. So one of the things that we're working on, I think, as government, and of course it will be part of the package that will be announced just to illustrate how households can take advantage of these opportunities, is to go into a massive recruitment process and training of especially young people. So the point I'm making is that there's also opportunities here. On the first structural problem with regards to manufacturing is an opportunity for industrialization. The second one is to consume the big pool of the unemployed. Of course, you skill them. In some instances, you reskill them to perform this function, and then you are able to address the employment question. But of course, they'll have to be organized under certain umbrella. The state will not employ people directly, and I think that's an opportunity that exists for small business. I isolated the energy one. I can do the same for roads. I can do the same for water. I can do the same for digital infrastructure. But I thought I must expand on the energy one because of it's a significant and where we are as a country at the current moment. And then there are opportunities going into the future. These are more long-term. And when I say long-term, I'm talking 24 months going into the future. Is opportunities around the new frontier, economic frontier, we call it the green hydrogen. We know that we've got advantages as a country. Fischer-Tropsch technology that is sitting with Sasol. It's essentially the technology that you use to split the hydrogen into its constituent component of oxygen and water, of hydrogen and oxygen. So we have that advantage. We have an advantage also of endowment of both mineral resources and renewable energy resources in the form of sun and wind. And that's why green hydrogen is growing. I mean, when we hosted the conference late last year of green hydrogen, the first on the continent, we're able to attract projects to the tune of about 310 billion rands. And we have since gazetted those. When we say we gazette, it means we are convinced together with the project sponsors that these are genuine projects that are likely going to come on stream, but they require, if you like, assistance in relation to removing the regulatory hurdles, the permitting, the licensing issues. And you can see that's a list of those projects that we have gazetted. So what is the point I'm making? I'm saying these are opportunities going into the future, green hydrogen. And I think that when we think about opportunities, not about the now, the crisis-induced opportunities of energy, the crisis-induced opportunities of water as a result of underinvestment and the neglect of water infrastructure, opportunities around roads because of potholes as a result of lack of maintenance, but it's just an appreciation of what the future holds. Just in conclusion, we think that there's a real opportunities. I mean, in addition to the points that I've been making, and I've isolated, if you like, the road infrastructure. If you look at the road infrastructure now, in the next 3 years, or the 3 years starting the current financial year, and of course the next 2 years, the president is saying we're building 682 kilometers of rural roads. So we use block paving so that we're able to maximize employment opportunities in those rural areas. So we're resolving the spatial distribution of opportunities, the first slide that I showed you. So we think that, of course, I mean, you don't just contract people directly, you go through, if you like, a registered entity. And I think there's opportunities for small businesses, just an appreciation of what does it take to build a rural road. So we've done the standard designs, which can be shared so that you can see where these opportunities, because part of what we're advocating for is the sourcing of material locally to the extent that you can find that material in a sustainable manner. Secondly, is about how you engage local businesses in the rollout of that road infrastructure. But we know that there are about 3 primary inputs into that. Its aggregates is the stones, opportunities around quarry. Of course, it's a form of mining. You need a mining license. And of course, the point I'm making is that there's a big pipeline of infrastructure roads project. I'm talking rural roads. Central, we have seen, has announced about 17 billion rands worth of road projects, and they'll be announcing others just now. So there's issues around aggregate. And then there's bitumen emulsion, or if you like, asphalt. Those are opportunities that they present themselves. Of course, the elephant in the room there is that to set up that plant, you need significant resources to support setting up that plant. And that's why we're having conversations with the IDC to create a financing instrument that is directed at the Black players in the space of infrastructure, outside what you call the Black industrialist program, because we think this is a nuanced intervention. And of course, it requires some degree of differentiated criteria on how people can participate there. We're doing an aggressive program on rural bridges, 95 bridges per annum, making sure that the rural communities have got access to or they've got all-weather access. 36% of the inputs in building these bridges is still, for obvious reasons. And we think that's still, of course, designated, must be a designated product, and I think it is a designated product for local manufacturing. So it's important that we see these opportunities as they are. And then there's a massive housing program, both led by private sector, both the private sector and public sector. The Minister of Finance raised a number of public sector-led projects. So what are the principal input costs? So it's bricks, concrete, roofing, door, and window frames. And the point we're making with regards to a pipeline of projects that is delivered by public sector, in particular the housing development agencies and the number of provincial human settlements department, is that those must be sourced from small to medium enterprises. Just the other day, the Premier of Gauteng made this commitment to the people of Gauteng, and of course, Gauteng has got the biggest pipeline of these housing projects, is that this will be sourced from small to medium enterprises. Of course, I mean, to produce bricks, you need equipment. Door and window frames, you need equipment. You need access to warehousing. You need access to, if you like, industrial space for you to be able to produce. And that's why that instrument that we're talking about when we talk to the IDC, it's meant to help us to resolve these challenges going forward, so that there's a correlation between the pipeline of infrastructure in projects and their delivery, and the degree to which we contribute to that NDP target of a meaningful participation of small businesses in the economy of the country. Thank you very much, Chair. I'll leave it there. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you for a very detailed presentation. You've answered quite a few of my questions. I suppose, let me take 2 or 3 from the chat box. The one is about where will accreditation come from? In other words, to prevent fly-by-nights installing faulty, substandard products, where will the accreditation come from? Which government department? Is it Infrastructure South Africa, DBSA, or it is the Department of Infrastructure? Then the second one is around DBSA only funds or prioritizes state-led projects. Is there an opportunity for co-financing and co-delivering these projects? And then, Prof, I think I have to ask this question. We are halfway through some of these projects. It's very exciting to see that they are at implementation stage. What is the incidence of corruption and how is this being ameliorated and being dealt with? Yeah, let me stop here for now, Prof, allow you to engage.
No, thanks. Oh, maybe just to make the point, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So when we engaging with the banks, we're trying to establish who accredits the installers. Remember, it's a space that we have not been involved in, but because now we're invested in the quality of the installation, because we're going to be ramping up the project, and we're going to be, if you like, guaranteeing some of the financial instruments that will come at play to make it possible for households to tap into these opportunities. So it's important that we agree on the accrediting institutions. So the long and short of it is that, no, I don't have the answer for now, but I'm sure if you had to ask me this question in 2 weeks' time, I should be able to answer it. And it's part of what we'll be making public as our ambitious program to install rooftop solar solutions. And on the DBSA, I wouldn't speak on behalf of the DBSA because I really don't have the mandate, and I'm not fully versed with the investment mandate. But I can say the following about the infrastructure fund. Remember, I did say it's a 100 billion rand facility that is incubated at the DBSA. Our office is responsible for the monitoring of the investments in relation to that blended financing. No, it's not targeted at the public sector-led projects. So there's a number of private sector-led projects that have received a financial injection. And the most preeminent program there is around student housing. I think we've got a pipeline of 3.2 billion rands of student housing programs that we are supporting. So when I say supporting, we're doing the financing gap so that the returns are attractive to private sector players. So it's a 3.1 billion rand. And then the pipeline continues to be replenished. I think over a period of about 6 years or so, it's a 70 billion rand program, the one on student accommodation. So the point I'm making is that there's many players, small, medium, and large developers that have received support from the infrastructure fund. And I just want to encourage colleagues, if they've had any unsavory experience, just to go to our website, the Infrastructure South Africa, and you can register that. The team is very responsive. I'm more than confident that we will be able to come back to you. And then with regards to incidents of corruption, so just to my point earlier on, was that when I introduced the subject, I did say that the current configuration is of such a nature that we are not involved in the delivery of the project. So we do project prep, assist with the financing, and then once the project has attracted the necessary financing, I use the example of Sanral. We can choose an example, HDA, any of the water boards. Once the money is available, they run the procurement process. And of course, incidents of corruption, the way the system is designed, it's after the fact when it gets to be reported or when the AG goes into the space. But one of the things that the president has announced in relation to the state of disasters, KZN, we have piloted this and it works. It's something called real-time auditing. So every stage of the procurement process, so be it the specification, evaluation, adjudication, the AG does if you like, monitor that and is able to ensure that everything is in order. So I guess it's a template will continue to improve. And I'm sure you've heard even now with the state of disaster, of course, there's a misinterpretation of what it means in relation to energy. But from in relation to energy, really from a procurement environment, that will be sitting at ESCOM, because really it helps them when they are looking for equipment or instruments to help to replenish what could be damage or malfunctioning at their power stations. They don't get to be subjected to the issues of the PFMA without undermining value for money competitiveness value for money, competitiveness, and transparency. But yes, the point there is that the real-time auditing is something that we're incorporating in government so that we don't experience the unsavory acts post the act, CEO.
Very much. Just two more last questions from my side, which is the first one. Would you consider a set aside along the lines of youth, women, and BEE to really get SMEs to be part of this very massive ambition in our country? Second one is the private sector physical infrastructure. Is there a collaboration and access to finance available? And what about the infrastructure needed for the development of SMEs in South Africa? Is this infrastructure part of what the private sector need to be investing? And then there's a residential alternative energy solution, which is very interesting. And we have many individuals who are capable of small scale. How will control be exerted to ensure quality and compliance of such installers? Thanks, Prof.
Yeah, maybe just to make the point, one of the things that we've been advocating for in the state, I mean, there's a number of representations we've made in cabinet, is the need for set aside, and the common response that we get is that the legislative framework does not allow for that, because you are denigrating the provision in the Constitution that talks about competitiveness. We raise a different argument. We say that the state has a duty to deliberately prop up, if you like, these sectors or these designated groups to ensure that they become meaningful participants in the South African economy. So I'm assuming that the revision of the procurement legislation in the country will make an attempt to resolve that. So we have made our submissions as infrastructure, like any other person within the space, to say that for as long as there's an ambitious and deliberate program, including amongst others set aside, and of course you need to ensure that the right kind of skills are in place, and the state must invest in the production of those skills. For as long as you don't address those, you are unlikely going to be able to meet these ambitious targets of the NDP, but also making sure that you deracialize in the most meaningful way the South African economy. So on this one, we're at one on what needs to be done. Of course, it must be codified in the legislation so that it finds expression and we're able to discharge it. But to the extent that there are projects that they are private sector led and they get to benefit from some of the instruments we have in the office, because some of the private sector led projects, especially in the housing settlement space, is that they need the bulk infrastructure, and you find that the local authorities do not have the money to do the bulk infrastructure, to finance the bulk infrastructure. And to the extent that we come into that space and help to finance the bulk infrastructure, we place the condition that to benefit from the bulk infrastructure instrument, there has to be meaningful participation of Black entities. And then we get to understand what is the nature of the project, and then we determine what that is in the most meaningful way. So we don't talk of you are 30% as is the case, but it's something more ambitious than that. And then depending on the nature of the project, we'll say in this and that area. So very deliberate on what needs to happen. And then on the issues of the rollout of solar PV, let me make the point, I forgot to make the point earlier on, just to use the opportunity that we are technology agnostic. So we don't prefer this or that technology. So that's a point to be made. So we're not supporting any technology. We support that which works and that which would have been accredited by the right bodies in the country. The Bureau of Standards will be key. And then there's issues around the accreditation of the actual installers, which is that in the next should be able to come back to you and say that this is how we see the accreditation happening. Well, first is a training, of course, and their accreditation, so that we make it possible for us to roll out this massive opportunity that is brought about by the crisis of COVID, the crisis of load shedding, for us to retrofit our households to make sure that we draw less and less from the ESCOM grid. CEO, thanks.
Thanks, Prof. I really have to abuse you slightly with last two questions. Do the derelict industrial sites referred to on the slide on opportunities for localization include township industrial parks? Please rule me out of order, but I really have to try this one. Are you our next Minister of Energy, of Electricity?
I thought I was invited here by friends. I mean, a friend wouldn't want you to be a Minister of Electricity. No, CEO, I mean, on a more serious note, I'm sure you can predict my answer. It's a determination that is made by the President. So yeah, the President will make the determination at the right time. CEO, your point, thanks for raising that question. I think I missed it in the midst of my quest to finish the presentation. Yes, when I talk about the derelict industrial parks, in particular the ones in the townships, so that when we talk township economy, it's not just reduced to spaza shops and but it's more meaningful than that, without necessarily downgrading spaza shops, because they play an important role in the township economy space. But I think if we are to make any meaningful contribution in the rejuvenation of township as economic, it's about that infrastructure. And the point we're making is that it's a sunk cost. So the structure is there. It's derelict, but the bulk is there. The bulk infrastructure is there. Connection to the municipal grid. They might have stripped the coppers, the wires, but there is connection to the municipal grid. They are already zoned for that. The roads, if you like, the internal roads, the width of the roads, they are designed to accommodate the kind of traffic that is likely going to come into that space. So when I say bulk, I really mean that. So all that we need to do is just to restore the infrastructure, or restore the warehouses, or build new warehouses. So in that way, you are resolving the issues around meaningful township economic revitalization. And you make it possible for people to work to and from work. We know, for an example, that the poor spends up to 60% of their incomes on commuting, and therefore they have less disposable income. Some of them have to take 3 taxis from Soweto to meet rent, just to look for, access those opportunities. It's an inordinate amount of money. You know, I was having a conversation with someone just the other day, complaining, lamenting about the collapse of rail. And the person was making the point that she's a security guard. She spends 45 rands return tickets to get to where she's meant to be stationed. And she says that if the train was there, she's spending up to, I think, 220 rands per month. So you can see, I mean, what that does. So there I'm really trying to illustrate the transport costs to get to work. So if you have you revitalize those industrial spaces, I mean, and of course the catchment area for labor is likely going to come from those townships. So people just walk to work and from work, and they get greater disposable income, and they're able to reinvest it in the South African economy. And the net benefit is significantly higher. So the multipliers, if you like, are exponential. And that's why we're making the point, it's about the resuscitation of those derelict or neglected industrial parks in the townships. Thanks, you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for a very insightful and engaging presentation. Clearly, you can see from the interest of the audience that there is much that we need to be doing to ensure that this opportunity to revitalize our economy is never missed. I thank you very much. It really feels good to know that our country's infrastructure program is in such good hands. Thank you very much, Prof. Thanks for your time. Thanks. You are free to go, Prof, if you need to, and we'll continue with the program. I thank you very much, and we'll circulate the presentation to those who participated today. Those who have attended our webinars will be familiar with this segment of the program. We call this segment of the program, Entrepreneurs Corner. It is carried and driven by an inspiring individual. The slot is meant to empower and encourage others battling to start, run, and grow their businesses. We're especially pleased that our next speaker has agreed to take a few hours out of her business to be with us. We have asked her to share her personal journey into a highly specialized field of industrial pharmacy. In 2018, she left a very secure job as a community pharmacist to start and run a bulk pharmaceuticals. She holds a master's degree in public health from the University of Limpopo, formerly known as Medunsa, and a Bachelor of Pharmacy from the University of Limpopo, formerly known as Teflop University or University of the North. She holds a certificate in mining and minerals. She practiced as a community pharmacist for 2 decades before branching out into industrial pharmacy. She's a member of the South African Women in Mining Investment Holding and a former council member and deputy chairperson of the Cape Town TVET College. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Shifiwa Mudiba. Over to you, Dr. Mudiba.
Thank you, my CEO. Unfortunately, where I am, we have load shedding and there are lots of generators making noise. I tried to move around, but can you hear me? Am I clear?
I think we can. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for the appointment today to present my business. I'm a woman who is eager to join industries that are different from what we know. I believe from the group that we have now, since this morning, somebody took a tablet or a medication, and we all do not know where it comes from. From what I realized as pharmacists, we are taught at school to go and study pharmacy, but not many of us know where does medications come from. And I managed to go out of the norms. And I said, after 20 years of practicing as a community pharmacy, I'm going to manufacture the medications. I had to do a lot of research, a lot of studies regarding where can I get what, the ingredients and all the things that I need to manufacture. But finally, I managed to start the company in 2018, whereby we are busy manufacturing the complementary medicines, and we are supplying to our pharmaceutical wholesalers, which is quite difficult if you are new in the market to convince the wholesalers so they can take your medications, to prove to them that really your medications are genuine, due to the bureaucracy that we have in our regarding registrations of our medications. If you go through most of the medications that you see, I'd like all the entrepreneurs who are here today to just go to all the shops and check the medications that you take, and check if most of the supplementary that we take, that you buy over the counter, you would find that it's written that not accredited by SAPRA. Due to the bureaucracy, it's so difficult for one to get there. But I'm one of those who are manufacturing, who my medications are still written not registered by SAPRA, which is not a bad road, but we are working hard towards accreditations and getting everything that is needed so that we can be able to supply our clients and be able to be part of this pharmaceutical gigantic business that has been there, that few understand, and we are not there as young entrepreneurs to be part of this. But I would really love to say it is interesting as a pharmacist that I managed to get to that level, and through SBI, I know more networks will come. When Dr. Ramokgopa was presenting, it was so interesting that you realize that now I'm in the right platform. I'll be able to get where I would like to. I'll be able to present the challenges that I get as an entrepreneur and the challenges that makes me not to get where I'm supposed to go. And you know, one would sit at the corner and you think you're doing good in your business, whereas there are institutions like this where you can be able to connect and be able to meet more people. Thank you, my CEO.
Thank you very much, Dr. Modiba. So let me just tell the audience that when I met you, I was quite taken aback by how specialized this field is and what a huge opportunity lies ahead of you. Now, could you please give us your journey, what it took for you to leave your secure employment and take a jump into the world unknown? After 20 years, how did you start? And how many people do you employ today? And did you get any funding to get to where you are to start your factory, or it was self-funded? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, okay. Yes, after 20 years of practicing in the community pharmacies, I was eager to understand as to where we are at the end of the value chain of medicine. And we do not know where they come from because we only buy from wholesalers. Then I researched and checked how can I get to a level where we can manufacture. It's so difficult, CEO, that you can be able to convince people just having an idea that, guys, I can manufacture medicines. I can do this. Come see my papers. So I was just lucky, I would say, that I met two partners who had their funds. When I was presenting to them, they understood that we can make it. They can support me to manufacture those medications. Then we worked for some time. They contributed funding, and we were able to supply those people that we are supplying. And we are about to be funded by Black industrialists after we've presented our plan and also everything that we've done. They realized that our route has been right, and we made proper implementations, and the little machinery that we had. And while in some conferences, while we were attending in the pharmaceutical world, we met some Indian companies who have dossiers that are registered with SAPRA, and we are going to partner with them. And then we are going to build at least one good pharmaceutical factory owned by Blacks, and knowing that we will be in the pharmaceutical business for life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How many people do you employ right now? And what is the next 5 years looking like for you? And how did you survive COVID? Did you get any of the relief measures that were laid out by the private sector and or government to survive COVID? Did you shut down or you continued operating?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I forgot to answer the people that we employ. At the present moment, we're employing 15 people in our factory, and We're looking forward to employ over 100 people with the plans that we have as we are preparing for the new endeavor. So COVID was I would like to say COVID helped us a lot. I'm sorry that most of the entrepreneurs had a problem then, but we managed to get opportunities during COVID. We then, when I'm talking complementaries, I'm talking vitamins, I'm talking your daily takings that you take. So you must remember when COVID came, it was said you must take vitamin C, you must take vitamin D3, you must take all the multivitamins. We managed to jump into that. And then we managed to supply the wholesalers with that. And as well, we managed to sanitizer. It's just what we live with every day. It's been there for a very long time pharmaceutically, but it had to be presented as a new thing to those who did not understand. So to us, it was easy to get into that. And then we were able to get the SABS registration at that time. Then we supplied even the sanitizer. And I can tell you that during COVID, our business grew than before. And then we were able to flow just after COVID. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And how does the next 5 years look like? And what informed the decision for you to set up in Johannesburg instead of your home province of Limpopo?
Okay, thank you. The next 5 years look brighter to us because, as I'm saying, medications are needed all the time and every time. And people, ever since COVID, I think the pharmaceutical world has been brought up to people to understand it better. So there is a need more than before now. And we will be with them and we'll be able to help the community with what we can be able to. But the 5 years looks much better for us since we will be building the new factory towards expanding our business. I moved from Limpopo because I'm telling you, all the ingredients that we need are here in Gauteng. I can go 5 minutes and get, but when I'm in Limpopo, it's so difficult that I can be able to get all my ingredients in the same place. Yes, I would love to be based in Limpopo, but I thought it's better to come where things are and establish ourselves. Then we can spread our wings to areas where pharmaceutical industries are not there. So it's just a plan, but now we thought everything is here. When I need something from India, I can get it within a day or two, but when I'm in Limpopo, I'll have to transport it, which is quite costly for us. And all the other pharmaceutical companies are here. We're able to communicate and we're able to attend to each other's needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I realized that throughout your presentation, you did not mention once a tender opportunity or some business that you're doing with government. Am I correct to say that maybe that forms part of your next scale? I'm talking about opportunities such as the manufacture of antiretrovirals, for example, and partnerships on the horizon with any of the big pharmaceutical companies, or you have just decided that you will only concentrate on retailers as well as wholesalers in the private sector and not in the public sector? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Those big companies that we're talking about, okay, like I indicated, the Indian company, they have there's a problem. I just said dossiers. Dossiers is documents that you use to register medications with SAPRA. Yes, the company that we're partnering with, the Indian company, they have dossiers for antiretrovirals, anti-cancer drugs, and all the medications that are used in the public health institute. So we are ready to partner with those who are in South Africa if they are there to can assist us and we can be their VE or help them, or we partner in getting whatever tender that's coming. But at the present moment, like I said, our plants still need to be able to take care of margins that will be needed by the Department of Health. So we are still working on getting a bigger building a bigger plant that we're able to cater for that. But if it's possible for us to partner with those with bigger plants, it will be good for us and we will be able to do those tenders. But at the present moment, when they are there, we look at them and feel pity that we have the capacity and we have the knowledge on how we can approach them. But the problem is the finance and the capital that we have to do that we can't. But we are more than ready to partner with those who are ready to partner with us in that space. Thank you. And probably what I can say is we are more on private. We're still dealing with private wholesalers and also the retail space. Like I indicated when I met you, that we are signing up with some chains, most of the chains that are in South Africa, and we are going to supply them, of which that indicates that our market mainly is still in private, and we really want to work with the government, and we really need to support our communities, and we really need to fill the gap that is there. But it's just due to funding and all the other things that we need to be suitable and be able to supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Modiba. Thank you very much. Just one last question from my side. How much training do you do? And when you started, how many people did you have? Now you have 15. How much training, how much skills transfer are you doing?
Okay. That when we started, we were about 4. We were not 15. As the need grew, we added more people to be part of us. The skills training, it's work specific because it's technicality that works with the pharmaceutical world. So we register with we get an accredited institution with the Pharmacy Council, and then they come and train our technical guys who are operating the machinery, especially for good manufacturing practice, for quality assurance and quality control of our products. So those are the practice that we're doing, the training that we're doing now for our staff to be able to produce better and more products that are of quality. Oh,
very
thank
much.
you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Modiba. And I hope I'm speaking on behalf of everyone when I say you have inspired us and you've succeeded in getting us to think bigger than our own fears. All that remains for me now is to thank you all for your time and kind attention. But before I bid you farewell, let me take this opportunity to just let you know that we have now received a report from our research partners on the critical area of municipal dysfunction and the impact this is having on small businesses, and recommendations are forthcoming on how this problem can be resolved. As a public benefit organization, we plan to share this output on an open source basis, as we do with all our research outputs in the coming weeks. As with, we will use the findings to continue our advocacy work for evidence-based policymaking. We look forward to hosting you at an Indaba in the next coming weeks, where we'll release the findings and our recommendations. Once more, thanks to all our speakers for their generosity of spirit, and thank you all as our audience for participating and making this the great success that it has been. The recording will be shared on all our platforms, as well as the presentation from Dr. Ramokgopa. Until next time, please stay safe. Thank you.